The stars outside the viewport looked calm, almost like they were painted on glass. But Commander Elias Ward knew better. Space was never calm. It only looked peaceful until it decided to remind you how small you were. The UES Solstice, a great silver arc the size of a small city, drifted between galaxies, carrying more than 10,000 human lives in cryosleep. It was a mission of hope, humanity's final reach toward a new home among the stars. The journey would take 100 years. But even in the void, someone had to stay awake. That someone was Elias Ward, commander of the Solstice, and Dr. Mara Vance, the ship's chief biospecialist. They were the last two humans awake, for 3 years. It had been just them, keeping the systems running, watching over the sleeping passengers, keeping the engines alive. There were long hours of silence, the kind of silence that could crush weaker minds. But Mara was not weak, and Elias was not the kind of man who showed fear. He never said much, but he was always there. When Mara worked long shifts in the med bay, checking the cryopods one by one, she would hear the faint sound of his boots in the hall, steady and sure. He would stop by, leave her a cup of steaming coffee on the counter, and say only one thing: "Keep going, Doc." She used to smile at that. "You could help, you know," she would tease. "I'm helping," he'd say, taking a sip of his own cup, eyes on the control panels. He never smiled much, but his quiet confidence made her feel safe. That was Elias, never dramatic, never loud, but always dependable. He was like the heartbeat of the ship, strong and constant. Sometimes, when Mara sat by the viewport, she would watch him work on the external sensors through the glass, just a lone figure in a black suit floating against the endless darkness. She would hear his voice through the comms, calm and professional, every breath steady inside his helmet. She had learned to read those breaths. When his breathing slowed, he was thinking. When it hitched, he'd found a problem. And when it steadied again, it meant he had fixed it. He never said, "I love you." He didn't need to. One day, the stars outside flickered strangely. A faint blue mist began to drift across the sensors, something the ship's maps didn't recognize. Mara frowned as she studied the readings. "Elias, you should see this. There's a gas field ahead, uncharted." He leaned over her shoulder, his shadow falling across the glowing display. "Could be a nebula, or something worse. We'll have to go through it." "No time to reroute." "Worse?" she asked. "Radiation. Electrical storms. Take your pick," but there was no choice. The Solstice was too large to maneuver easily, and any delay could endanger the frozen passengers. So they went in. The mist wrapped around the ship like a living thing. The hull began to hum with static. Lights flickered. The bridge filled with the soft crackle of energy. Then, silence. The communication systems went down. Mara tried to contact the AI core. No response. The engines stuttered once, twice, and the power grid dropped to emergency mode. The cryopods, each holding a sleeping soul, blinked with red warning lights. "Elias," she said quietly, cryo temperatures rising. "We're losing containment on Deck 3. He was already moving. "Lock the deck and reroute the coolant manually. I'll handle the power relays." She caught his arm before he left. "It's too dangerous. External relays mean you'll have to go outside." He met her eyes. "If those pods fail, we lose 10,000 people." "I'll be fine." He didn't wait for her to argue. He just walked out, calm as ever. Outside, space burned blue. The nebula's energy lashed at the Solstice's hull like lightning, wrapping the ship in ghostly tendrils of light. Elias's suit lights blinked against the storm as he moved across the outer surface, magnetic boots gripping metal, his body a tiny spark against the vastness. Inside, Mara watched his vitals on the monitor. Heart rate steady, oxygen flow normal, voice clear. "External relay 1, stabilized," he reported. "Copy," she said, fingers shaking as she typed commands. "Proceed to relay 2. Every few seconds, she heard him breathe. Slow, steady, controlled. That sound was the only thing keeping her calm. Then came a sharp crack through the comms. A surge hit the hull. Elias grunted and his suit camera flickered. "Mara, I've got interference," he said, voice calm despite the static. "Your readings are spiking," she replied. "You need to get back inside." "Not yet. Relay 2 is offline. If I leave it, the backup reactor won't hold." He said it like he was talking about the weather, but Mara could hear the strain in his voice. the faint hiss of oxygen leaking somewhere in his suit. Her chest tightened. "Elias, your O2 levels are fine," he interrupted. "I'll manage. Just keep the coolant stable," and he did. She listened to his breathing the whole time. In, out, until the warning lights finally turned green again. The cryosystems cooled, the ship's hum softened, and the red alarms disappeared one by one. She exhaled shakily, realizing she'd been holding her breath the entire time. When Elias stepped back through the airlock, his suit was scorched, his gloves half melted from the plasma surges. He took off his helmet and gave a small nod. "Everything's stable." "You could have died," she said, voice trembling. He shrugged. "You kept me alive." Then, without a word, he handed her a datapad. "Logs need updating." That was Elias, always the soldier. Later, in the quiet of the mess hall, Mara sat across from him. He was cleaning the soot from his gloves, eyes on his work. The hum of the engines filled the silence between them. "You didn't have to go out there alone," she said softly. "Someone had to," he answered. "I could have." He looked up, his expression unreadable. "You're the only biologist left awake, Mara. If something happens to you, no one can fix the cryopods. You're the priority." She didn't know what to say to that, so she just stared at him, at the way his hands moved carefully, the way his jaw tightened when he was thinking. Every movement spoke more than his words ever could. He didn't need to tell her what he felt. She already knew. When he finally looked up, their eyes met across the table. For a moment, the whole universe felt quiet. Then he said softly, "You did good today." It wasn't much. But coming from Elias Ward, it was everything. That night, Mara couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the sound of his breathing through the comms, the way it had grown faint before stabilizing again. There had been something in it, something like a promise. She walked to the viewport, watching the blue haze outside fade as the solstice cleared the nebula. The stars returned, shining sharp and cold, and reflected faintly in the glass. She saw Elias standing behind her. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked quietly. "Not really," she said. "Too much adrenaline," he nodded. "We'll be through the storm by morning. Then we can start repairs." She smiled faintly. "You sound like that's easy." He gave the smallest of grins. "Everything's easy when you've got the right crew." Her heart caught at that. He turned to leave, but before he stepped away, she said, "Elias?" He paused. "Thanks." For coming back, he didn't answer, not in words. He just gave a short nod, his eyes soft in a way she'd never seen before. Then he walked away, boots echoing down the empty corridor. She watched him until he disappeared around the corner. In the hum of the ship and the rhythm of the engines, she could almost hear it, the quiet, steady pulse of his breath in her memory. And in that silence between the stars. The solstice had cleared the first edge of the nebula, but the crew, Mara and Elias alone, could feel the unease that lingered like a shadow. Outside, the stars shivered, refracted through the mist of charged particles. Sensors flickered and hummed. The hum of the ship no longer felt comforting. It was warning. Mara stood at the main console, eyes scanning the flickering displays. The cryopods were stable for now, but the nebula had left a strange mark on the ship's systems. Some circuits acted unpredictably, blinking red for no reason. Power levels fluctuated. Even the AI, normally precise and calm, seemed unsure. "Elias," she called through the comm, "there's something wrong with the hull sensors. They're showing pulses like signals, not noise." He appeared behind her, coat brushing lightly against the console. His eyes were calm, unreadable. "Signals?" "Yes," Mara said, pointing to the display. "Not electromagnetic interference like the storm. It's patterned. Deliberate," he frowned. "Deliberate? Are you saying someone or something is out there?" She shrugged. "I don't know, but it's not random." Elias rubbed his jaw. "We'll check external cameras. If it's dangerous, we'll handle it before it handles us." Minutes later, he floated in zero gravity outside the observation deck, helmet lights sweeping the ship's hull. Mara watched from inside, tracking his vitals in the external cameras. The sensors revealed a strange glow around the ship, a kind of electrical haze that moved with intention. It was not the nebula, it was alive. A pulse of blue energy struck the hull. The comm crackled. "Mara, you see this?" "Yes," she whispered, heart racing. "Is it attacking us?" "No." His voice was calm, but the faint catch in his breath betrayed him. It's curious, almost observing." Inside, Mara leaned closer to the console. The readings were strange. The entity's pulses reacted to their movements. When she adjusted a sensor, the pulses changed rhythm. It was learning from them. Elias returned to the airlock, careful and silent, floating back into the ship. It's not hostile, at least not yet. But it's intelligent, Mara's pulse quickened. Intelligent? Like alive? Yes. Something alive outside the known universe, trying to understand us. He paused, then added quietly, "It reminds me of..." Mara looked at him. He never spoke like that. She felt a shiver, like he was sharing something he normally kept hidden. Over the next hours, they tried to communicate. They sent simple pulses of light, short bursts of the ship's signal, hoping to show themselves as non-threatening. The entity responded in kind, waves of energy pulsing across the hull, reflecting in the bridge's lights. Mara leaned closer to the console. "It's learning," she whispered. "Look at the pattern. It's imitating our sequences." Elias stood behind her, hand on the back of the chair. "Then it's listening, and it can learn fast. Fast enough to be dangerous," she muttered. But Elias only shook his head. "Or fast enough to understand us. That's human nature, Mara. We risk everything for each other. We care, and maybe it's seeing that too." She turned to him, startled. "What do you mean?" He looked out at the viewport. "It doesn't understand words, but it can understand actions. How we protect the cryopods, how we risk ourselves, how we keep each other alive." She swallowed hard. He sounded almost tender. Then the ship shuddered violently. The AI began to fail, blinking red warnings on every console. "It's trying to reach the core," Elias said. "It doesn't know what it's doing, but it's interacting with the systems. If it reaches the reactor, it could overload it. We could lose everything." Mara's hands flew over the controls. "How do we stop it?" "We can't just shut it down. It's alive and smart." Elias grabbed a spare helmet. "We'll do it manually. You and me, together. I'll handle the external relays. You'll work the reactor controls inside." She hesitated. "Elias, I don't..." He cut her off gently. "Mara, we've survived worse. We'll survive this. Just stay calm. Listen to me. Trust your instincts." Her throat tightened. His words were steady, his presence anchoring her fear. And again she heard it, the calm, even rhythm of his breath. It was a promise he would return. They moved quickly. Elias floated outside the ship, suit lights cutting through the blue haze of the nebula. Mara worked inside, typing commands at the console, monitoring the reactor, watching the entity's pulses in real time. The being seemed fascinated by them. Every adjustment Mara made caused a ripple across its energy field. Elias noticed it too. He floated closer to one of the hull nodes, trying to repair the unstable circuits. Sparks danced over his gloves. A surge of electricity hit the hull. His comm hissed with static. Mara's heart stopped. "Elias," she cried. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," he said, though she could hear the slight hitch in his voice. "Just adjusting." Her hands trembled over the keyboard. She wished she could reach through the viewport and touch him. Every pulse, every breath he took filled her with relief and fear. She realized she could hear more than the comms. She could almost feel his emotions through the rhythm of his breathing. When he finally stabilized the node, he paused and spoke softly. "Reactor controls?" "Almost. Hold it steady," she said. Together they managed to guide the entity's pulses away from the reactor. The AI slowly stabilized. The cryopods were safe. For a moment the two of them just looked at each other. Sweat glistened on Mara's forehead. Elias's suit was scorched in places. They were exhausted but alive. He said nothing, just nodded toward her, and she knew he understood what she felt. Later, in the quiet of the observation deck, Mara sat at the viewport, staring at the blue glow fading behind them. Elias approached, leaning on the railing. His helmet was off, hair ruffled, face streaked with grime, but his eyes were steady. "You did well," he said simply. "You too," she whispered. He looked away, and for a moment she thought he would walk off without another word. Then he turned back. "Sometimes," he said slowly, "you don't need to say anything. You just notice, and that's enough." She understood. Every risk, every shared breath, every silent moment. They had spoken volumes without words. She remembered the first time she had heard the faint hitch in his breathing as he worked outside the hull. She had felt it like a heartbeat echoing in her chest. And now, after hours of facing a strange, intelligent life, she felt it again, steady, sure, human. He had never said, "I love you." He didn't need to. The solstice continued its journey through the stars, carrying 10,000 souls and 2 humans awake to protect them. But Mara and Elias shared something more, an unspoken understanding, a silent promise that whatever dangers lay ahead, they would face them together. Outside, the nebula faded, leaving the ship bathed in starlight. The strange entity pulsed one last time as if acknowledging them, then moved on into the depths of space. Inside, Mara exhaled, relief flooding her. She glanced at Elias. He was cleaning his gloves again, quiet, professional. But she noticed the faint tremor in his hand, the kind that only comes after facing death and surviving. She smiled faintly. "You okay?" He nodded. "I am. Thanks to you." Her heart tightened. She had never needed words from him. She had heard them in every careful movement, every steady breath, every small act of courage. And as the ship glided through the endless void, she realized that some promises are louder than words. Some love is shown in the air we breathe, in the risks we take, in the lives we protect. The solstice drifted through the calm of space, but calm was a fragile thing. Mara sat at the observation deck staring at the stars, still haunted by the memory of the nebula and its living pulses. The ship hummed gently, but deep inside she felt a tension she could not shake. The entity they had encountered was gone for now, but she knew it had left a mark, both on the ship and on her. Elias stood behind her, silent as ever, hands resting lightly on the railing. He had been quiet since the last repairs, but Mara could feel his presence in every corner of the deck. The subtle strength of him, the steady rhythm of his breathing, the confidence he carried without speaking. It was a constant reassurance. Suddenly, alarms rang out, loud and urgent. The AI's calm voice came on the intercom, but it was fractured, unsure. "Warning, reactor instability detected. Immediate manual intervention required." Mara's heart skipped a beat. "Elias," she called, her voice sharp. "It's the reactor. It's unstable again." He didn't hesitate. "I'll go outside. You stay here and stabilize the controls. This is going to require precise timing." "No," Mara shouted, panic rising. "We need to do this together." He interrupted her gently. "Mara, listen. The external nodes are critical. If I don't fix them manually, we could lose the entire ship. Trust me." She wanted to argue, wanted to go with him, but she knew the truth in his words. He always put others first. She nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. "Be careful," she whispered. "I will," he replied. And then he was gone, floating into the void, helmet lights cutting through the cold blue of the nebula remnants. Mara's fingers flew over the controls, heart hammering. The reactor's core was unstable, and the AI, though powerful, could not fully manage the fluctuations. Every pulse, every adjustment mattered. Outside, Elias worked methodically, repairing and rerouting the damaged circuits, sparks occasionally leaping from the nodes. She watched him on the monitor, noting how he moved, deliberate, careful, unflinching. Every breath he took through his suit was measured, precise, and she felt it like a silent message. "I'm here. I'll come back." The minutes stretched into an eternity. One misstep, one surge of energy, and thousands of lives could be lost. Mara adjusted the reactor's valves, feeling the heat of responsibility press against her chest. She had never realized how fragile everything really was, how the survival of humanity could rest in the hands of 2 people, awake and alone in the void. Suddenly, a surge of energy hit the ship, stronger than before. The external nodes sparked and the comms hissed with static. Elias grunted into the comms, his voice tight. "Mara, the surge is too strong. I can't hold it." "No," she shouted. "You can. You must." But she knew it wasn't just the surge. The entity, the living nebula, was back. Its pulses washed over the hull, curious, observing, perhaps even testing them. Elias's helmet light flickered as he struggled to maintain control. Mara's hands shook. "Elias, your oxygen levels." "I've got it," he said, voice strained but firm. "Just keep the reactor stable." "I can't fail, not now." She clenched her teeth, pressing her palms flat on the console. She adjusted the valves, rerouted power, synchronized the cooling systems. Every command she gave had to be perfect. Every breath had to count. Outside, Elias worked like a man possessed. Sparks danced across the hull. His suit shuddered with each surge, and then, almost imperceptibly, his breathing slowed. Mara's stomach dropped. Elias, you're O2. I'll manage, he said, cutting her off. But she could hear the faint hitch in his breathing. She knew he was giving her some of his oxygen through the suit's shared system, sacrificing his safety to keep her steady. Her throat tightened. She wanted to scream at him to stop, to save himself, but she knew he wouldn't. That was Elias. Always protecting others, always putting humanity first. The surges grew worse. The entity's curiosity turned into chaos, and the reactor's readings spiked dangerously. Mara's fingers moved faster, coordinating the ship's systems as best she could. She felt her heart in her throat, listening to every breath of Elias, counting the pulses, fearing the worst. Then came a silence, the kind that makes the universe feel enormous and empty. Mara's fingers froze. The external feed showed Elias floating, perfectly still. Her chest constricted and panic clawed at her. "Elias!" she screamed, a faint flicker of light. A pulse of energy. The nebula's glow surrounded him. Mara's screen glitched, showing fragments of images and light. And then, almost impossibly, the surges stopped. The reactor stabilized. The AI regained control. Mara's hands fell from the controls. She could barely breathe, staring at the feed. The nebula's pulses receded, leaving the ship unharmed. And then she noticed something. Elias's body wasn't moving in the usual way. His vitals on the monitor were flat, but the lights on his helmet glowed softly. She felt a cold panic rise. No, 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 no. Inside, the ship shuddered again, but softly this time, as if acknowledging the presence of something greater. A voice, not human, not machine, but something in between, resonated in her mind. A rhythm, familiar and calming. It was Elias. Not Elias the man, but Elias. His consciousness merged with the ship, a silent echo tethered to the solstice. He had sacrificed his physical body to save the Ark. Mara fell to her knees, tears streaming. Elias, you didn't have to. But she could feel him. In every vibration of the ship's engines, in the steady hum of the air, in the rhythmic pulsing of every system. He was there, alive in a new form. Watching. Protecting. The nebula, as if understanding the human bond, receded into the void, leaving the ship in peace. And the solstice carried on, a beacon of humanity's courage and ingenuity in the endless dark. Days passed. The solstice's course was clear. Repairs were completed. The cryopods remained stable. Mara moved through the ship, her eyes catching every flicker of the lights, every subtle pulse. She knew Elias was there in a way she could feel but not see. She walked to the observation deck, staring at the stars. Her fingers brushed the railing, feeling the vibration beneath her hands, the quiet heartbeat of the ship. A soft pattern, almost like breathing. She smiled faintly, whispering, "I hear you, Elias." The ship responded with a gentle pulse, the rhythm of life, of protection, of love. Mara knew he would never say, "I love you." He never needed to. She had heard it in every breath, in every act of courage, in every sacrifice he had made. And she knew humanity was not just surviving in the stars. Humanity was shining, through the courage of a few, the selflessness of one, the quiet strength that refuses to give up. The solstice continued its journey through the galaxy, carrying 10,000 souls and 2 humans, one awakened body, one awakened spirit, bound together by unspoken words, by silent promises, by love in every breath. Night after night, Mara would sit at the viewport. She would close her eyes and listen. The ship would hum. She could feel him there, guiding, watching, protecting, and she knew no matter what lay ahead, they would survive, because humanity always survived, through courage, through love, through every heartbeat shared silently between 2 souls. And sometimes, she realized, love is strongest when it never needs to be said.